But his pit stop put paid to that and gave Toro Rosso some much-needed breathing space. Massa didn't get past Webber in the pit stops. He had to do the work on track. And he did just that. He took the advantage while Webber was all in a spin. The predicted rain didn't arrive, so race leader Vettel made the switch from extreme wets to normal wets at his second stop. McLaren intended a one-stop strategy for Hamilton, but it was too dry for extreme wets, and he had to make the change. A later stop for one-stopping Kubica paid off. With the threat of rain diminishing, he was able to change tyres and get back out third. Webber had just lost a place to Hamilton and was desperate to get it back. But that wasn't the way to do it. Taking the shortcuts meant the inevitable. He had to give the place back. Nakajima and Coulthard negotiated 12th place. Badly. Vettel still led, but he wasn't home and dry just yet. It was a tense time for the team. And the boss. But he calmly drove to become the 6th race winner of 2008. Toro Rosso were falling over themselves to see their man take the checkered flag. He was the youngest man to take pole. Now he was the youngest ever Formula One race winner. The fact that it was on Toro Rosso's home turf made it all the more special.
You have won the Italian Grand Prix. You have won the Italian Grand Prix. I'm proud of you. Bravissimo. Bravissimo. Impressionante.
I don't know what to say. I miss the word. Grazie mille. Grazie mille. Ungara, perfetto. Thanks. Wonderful race. Great job. Yeah.
Kubica was very happy with the podium finish. Alonso got a better than expected 4th. Rosberg was disappointed to finish 14th, while Bourdais was gutted to be 18th after his start line problems.
Unbelievable what happened today. Obviously it was a very, very difficult race. Very, very tricky conditions out there. A lot of spray in the beginning. Obviously being first is the easiest position you can be, but I've been there, you know, I've done all that, and where you go half throttle down the straight without seeing anything. And it's very difficult, but I'm extremely happy, and I think it takes some time to understand what first of all happened yesterday and what happened even better what happened today. And I think, you know, if I may dedicate this success to anyone, I will dedicate it definitely to the team, because they have been working so hard. You know, we've done a lot of races. We have finished in P15 or 16th or whatever. And we have done a great job. Obviously, you know, to give back with that kind of success and with that achievement, to give it back to the team is great. I mean, all the people working at home in Faenza, which is not far from here, obviously winning in Italy a home Grand Prix, even better. I mean, is, you know, difficult to put in words.
Hamilton's lead was reduced to just 1 point ahead of Massa, and with McLaren's appeal thrown out after Monza, there was a lot at stake in Singapore. Kubica still had a mathematical chance, but it was looking increasingly difficult for Kimi to retain his title as he was now 21 points behind. McLaren were beginning to close on Ferrari in the constructors. Toyota and Renault were equal on points, and Toro Rosso was now ahead of Red Bull. Singapore is a dynamic city. One of the busiest ports in the world, it is a thriving blend of commerce and culture. From tranquil gardens to slick skyscrapers. The perfect location to mix business with pleasure. And for Formula One to host its first ever night race.
This is second to none.
I think it's going to be a great weekend for everybody.
The visibility is perfect, so there's no issue.
For me, it's magic.
Friday's practice sessions were very busy, with drivers trying to find the limit on the new track. But Mark Webber pushed a little too hard.
Okay, welcome to the inaugural Singapore Grand Prix. I'm Mark Webber from Red Bull Racing. I'm going to take you around a lap of the new track in my second session that I had tonight. So I crashed in the first one, so not many laps, and here we go. So on to start finish now. You can see obviously it's a totally different scenario with the lights on the straight here, braking a little bit over to the right so that we can get a little bit more of an entry into the first sequence of corners. Into turn 3, traction is very bumpy here on power. Accelerating hard out of here up to a very tricky turn 5, which is quite easy to run a little bit wide on the exit. So now we can have a little bit of a relax along this long straight. Now this is the bumpiest part of the circuit as well. We have two little kinks. And then very, very extreme on the brakes here in terms of how bumpy it is. Through turn 7, front of the car washing out a little bit, short acceleration, back to second gear, making sure that you get the front of the car tucked in nicely. Again, traction there is quite tricky. Very tricky corner this one as well, turn 9. The track opens up quite a lot, very easy to get close to the wall there. Now we come down to turn 10, which is very slow chicane with some very extreme curbs, so very easy to jump the car through there. Now another little chicane, running the curbs once again, dancing with the power on the exit of that corner. Now we come over Henderson Bridge, braking very tight to come back onto another long straight. Didn't get quite a very good exit on that lap there. You can see them working quite hard on power. Braking very, very late for this another tight right-hander here. Rear of the car moving around again. Short acceleration around a blind kink. As soon as I'm around this kink, I'm braking immediately back to second gear. Over the bumps a little bit on the inside. Turning in a bit earlier for the next one there. Also now hard back on the power. This is where I crashed this morning, so braking a little bit earlier so far. Tipping the car in here. I've got Felipe Massa in front of me now, who moves out of the way. Hard on power now, and then I'm second last chicane across the curbs. Hard on power in third gear now. Use all the road on the exit. Coming to finish the lap now. Tip it in, down one gear, back on the power. Tricky corner, that one you'll see a little moment, and then that's the lap of the new Singapore circuit. I think they've done a good job with it. Obviously, it's a little bit extreme in terms of the bumps in places, but yeah, it's a very challenging street circuit, and the night thing is not too bad. I think the visibility is very good.
In qualifying, it was Renault that had the problems.
Car stops, mate. The car stops.
Fernando had looked strong all weekend, but on Saturday, a fuel problem at the start of Q2 called time on proceedings. He was furious. All four championship contenders filled the first four spaces, but it was Felipe Massa who took the first pole position at night. Red Bull hoped for better luck in the race from 13th and 14th. Despite his problems, Alonso was 15th and still outqualified his teammate like he had at every event in 2008. The inaugural Grand Prix in Singapore, the first race to be held at night with its glittering skyline, it looks set to be the highlight of the Formula One calendar. As the cars took their places, the excitement got a little too much for Piquet. A new track was anybody's game. But when the lights went out, Massa pulled away brilliantly. Hamilton could do nothing about the Ferrari and focused his attention on Raikkonen. Kubica and Kovalainen squabbled for position, and it was Heikki who lost. The one stopping Trulli was holding up many drivers. Nico Rosberg had to get past for 9th. Those behind the Toyota were lapping 5 seconds slower than the front runners. If Alonso was to get anything from Singapore, he had to get by. Lap 12 and Alonso was the first to pit. And Renault's gamble looked to have paid off when Piquet crashed heavily and brought out the safety car. The Red Bulls and Barrichello just scraped in before the pit lane closed, but Rosberg wasn't so lucky. He needed to refuel. He wasn't the only one. Kubica needed to pit, and both would get a stop-go penalty. The safety car was still out. Those who managed to stop made huge gains, whereas everyone else had to conserve fuel. When the pit lane finally opened, drivers had to queue. Felipe's light went green and off he went, but his fuel rig was still attached. And just like in Valencia, he had a near miss with Sutil. Then had to drive the length of a very busy pit lane. Finally, he came to a halt, and the Ferrari mechanics arrived on the scene. Red, amber, then the mechanic at the front said green to go. Due to the chaotic pit lane, the normally automated system was manually operated. It was a costly mistake. Unbelievably, things deteriorated further. The fuel rig would not disconnect. He had dominated the race, and now he was last. Race leader Rosberg had work to do.
Nico, you have a stop-go penalty. You need to push hard now to get the gap.
For the moment, he led the race. Trulli and Fisichella had not pitted yet, and Kubica was yet to take his penalty. That left Alonso leading Webber, Coulthard and Hamilton. Stuck behind Fisichella, Kubica's penalty took him out of the running. But clear track and blistering pace limited the damage for Rosberg. And helped him rejoin an incredible third. Race leader Alonso pitted for a second time. Track position was vital, with 20 laps to go. And he managed to rejoin ahead of Coulthard and Hamilton. Lewis lined him up for a move, but DC was headed into the pits anyway. Things had definitely improved for Coulthard as the weekend went on. But a miscommunication meant he was released before the fuel rig was. Trulli slowed thanks to a loss of hydraulic pressure. Massa tried to avoid him and got in a spin. Sutil tried to avoid him and crashed. Massa's disastrous pit stop ruined Raikkonen's evening as well. He wasn't making much progress from fifth. That nailed it. Game over, and probably the championship too. The crowd reached fever pitch as race leader Alonso took the final corners towards victory. Who would have predicted that on Saturday night?
Well done, boys. Well done, boys.
Fernando won again for the 20th time in his career, with Rosberg second and Hamilton third. Unbelievably, it was Renault's first win since Japan 2006, but at least Piquet played a part in it. Neither Fernando nor Nico thought they would have stood on the podium in Singapore. Heidfeld ensured that BMW had scored at every race. Webber's retirement cost him a podium, but Coulthard got his second points finish. Ferrari lost their lead in the constructors, while Hamilton was content to take 6 points.
We have a fantastic car this weekend, and it was nice to drive all the laps I did here in Singapore first night, and will be a historical race for Formula One. Happy to be part of it.
I think we all remember now how much we enjoy winning, so it just reinforces it's been a hard couple of years. 23 months since we last won a race, and it's a nice feeling.
While one world champion celebrated, another could only reflect on what looked to be the end of his title dreams.
Careful of the fuel rig, Felipe.
Yeah. Nice joke.
With 7 points separating the top two in the title hunt, qualifying was no laughing matter in Japan. Championship leader Lewis Hamilton had the upper hand when F1 arrived at Mount Fuji, and he went on to secure the 12th pole position of his career. There was no disguising Felipe's disappointment with his own 5th place. For now, it was advantage Hamilton. He'd opted not to risk 3rd in Singapore, but he made it clear that he wanted to be out in front in Japan.
Well, I'd never let anyone past. If I'm out in front, then I push to win the race. But if I don't know, when the time comes, I guess I'll deal with it in the best way I can and make sure that whatever happens, we finish the race in the points.
The pressure was on Kazuki Nakajima. He lined up 14th at his home Grand Prix, 1 place ahead of his teammate.
Hello, I'm Kazuki Nakajima from AT&T Williams. This will be the quickest lap from Q2 in Fuji Speedway. So now we are on the longest the straight line in all the Formula One calendar, which has got 1.5k. And now going to the first corner, which is probably the best place to overtaking. Then we have a big braking and make sure to have a good apex, and as soon as possible put the full power on. Then now into the turn 3, which is a 5th gear, quick left-hander. It's very short corner, but you don't see the apex very well. Turn 5 is almost flat through, and you need a good exit to prepare for turn 6. And turn 6, you just put power as soon as possible and go as wide as possible. And then now in turn 10, which is very narrow and tricky sequence of corners. Then from here, it's going to be all the way the uphill. Turn 13 is a kind of blind corner. You have to keep the car flat as possible. Then turn 15, I've got some oversteer there. It's very easy to get some oversteer because you are always laterally loaded on the braking. Then you just have to make sure to have a very good traction from the last corner, then coming back to the straight line again.
Raikkonen found himself in a McLaren sandwich. The start was crucial if he was to keep Lewis at bay and help his teammate, who was stuck down in 5th. Singapore winner Alonso managed 4th, Kubica 6th, with the Toyotas and Toro Rossos rounding up the top 10. Kimi's eyes were locked onto his target, but Lewis focused firmly on turn 1. Hamilton did not get a good start, and Raikkonen easily got the jump on him. Lewis would not accept defeat. He locked up and flat-spotted his tyre, sending him and several others wide at turn 1. Kubica and Alonso saw an opportunity and swooped into the lead. Another slip-up from Hamilton lost him 4 more places. It was a first-lap disaster. Some bumping and grinding for Coulthard left his suspension damaged and got him into trouble with Nakajima. The Japanese driver was lucky to avoid a second hit when the Red Bull lost control. And DC miraculously escaped without serious injury. The championship rivals found themselves battling on track, side by side, and it all got too much. Lewis waited to rejoin once everyone else had passed. The frustration was clear. His lock-up into turn 1 had cost him dear. He rejoined 18th, over 50 seconds behind, and was under investigation by the stewards. Raikkonen got off the grid well, but got caught up in the turn 1 mess and damaged his car. But that didn't stop him taking 4th from Trulli. His championship aspirations were all but gone, but his racing instinct still burned. Kovalainen had been confident of a good result, maybe even the win, but the first Mercedes engine failure since Italy 2006 put paid to that. There was no silver lining for Hamilton. A drive-through penalty for forcing Raikkonen off the track put him well out of contention. The stewards decided that he could not go unpunished. He wasn't the only one in trouble. Massa's move on Hamilton on the first lap landed him a drive-through penalty as well. Felipe was deemed to have caused an avoidable collision and paid the price. Mistakes by the top 2 benefited Alonso and Kubica.
Kubica is 5 laps longer. Kubica 5 laps longer. You need to sprint like hell, mate. Sprint like hell.
Fernando didn't need telling twice. He got ahead of Kubica at the first round of stops and knew that with clean air he could leave the BMW standing. Massa was doing his best to recover ground. By lap 50, a points finish looked possible. But a tangle with Bourdais as the Toro Rosso exited the pits left them both under investigation and Felipe back to front. Kubica's final set of tyres were graining badly and Kimi had reeled him in. But the BMW driver defended his position well from the outgoing world champion. Raikkonen couldn't find a way past and Robert wasn't letting him by. Piquet started 12th on a heavy fuel load, but had quietly made his way up to 4th. Not even a little mistake in the closing stages could upset his rhythm. With his tyres back up to form, Kubica kept Kimi at bay. While the other Ferrari wanted to salvage something from Fuji. With Hamilton 12th and a lap down, a points finish for Felipe would close the gap. Heidfeldt's 9th place was high on his agenda. With only 2 laps to go, Mark Webber was his next victim. He used every single bit of track to take 8th from the Red Bull and earned himself a point. No one came close to stopping Alonso. Once he was given a chance of victory, he took it and ran.
Fantastico Fernando, grande, Piquet quarto, bravissimo.
Luck might have played a part in Singapore, but Japan was down to the pace of the car and the driver behind the wheel. While Kubica punched well above his weight and slammed himself right back into contention for the championship.
Well done, mate. Fantastic drive, fantastic. 2 in a row.
Yes! Thank you, guys. Wow.
Alonso and Kubica kept their cool while others lost theirs, and the rewards were sweet. Raikkonen was 3rd ahead of Piquet, Trulli and Vettel. Hamilton limped home a disappointing 12th, while Massa was elevated to 7th after the race following a time penalty for Bourdais. It had been a good race for Sebastian. He exited from his second pit stop and was battling for position with Felipe's Ferrari, but it wasn't to be. Kubica was now back in the running. There was everything to play for in China, with 3 drivers in with a chance. Each one would be gunning for the victory. Ferrari retook the lead of the constructors. McLaren failed to score for only the 2nd time this season, and BMW were hot on their heels, while Renault edged away from Toyota. It was a disastrous day for McLaren, but Ferrari failed to capitalise, and that allowed Renault to relive their glory days. Toyota had high hopes for a Shanghai surprise when Trulli got amongst the top guys in Friday's second practice.
Hi, this is Jarno Trulli, driver for Panasonic Toyota F1 team. So I'll take you through the Shanghai circuit. We go on to the main straight, in 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th gear down the straight. And we found a right-hand corner, very, very long, which ends up in a hairpin. So we shift down 2 gears, 3 gears, down in 2nd gear for the very, very slow speed corner hairpin. Then left-hand corner, again accelerating out in 2nd gear, a lot of wheel spinning, and then 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th, braking into a right-hand corner, and then accelerating out in 2nd gear, 3rd, 4th, 5th, for a very long and quick high-speed corner, taking it flat, and then a series of right-hand corner, left-hand corner. This is a 2nd gear corner, 3rd at the exit, very slippery, and then 4th, 5th, back straight, 6th and 7th, braking down really hard, 2nd gear, hitting the curb on the inside, and then accelerating out, 2nd gear, very slippery part, then 3rd, 4th for a very, very long right-hand corner, which takes us on a very long straight. We shift up in 6th and 7th, and then long straight, which takes us into a hairpin. We brake into this hairpin around 80 meters, then we shift down in 1st gear, we accelerate out, and then we are back on the last corner, which is in 4th gear, and then back on the main straight again.
Lewis Hamilton was the centre of attention in China, but it was his driving style that was the hot topic amongst his fellow drivers.
In the last race, yeah, it was a racing maneuver and it didn't pull off, but you know, that's motor racing. What can you do? And I don't plan on changing my approach. Not necessary.
Robert, can I ask you? You made some comments last week about Lewis's driving at Monza. Said that some of his overtaking was dangerous. Can I ask you to comment further on that and whether you have discussed this directly with Lewis?
I think there is nothing to comment more. When one driver is overtaking the other one and crossing his line just in front of his wheel, is quite dangerous, especially if someone behind has to lift off. I mean, I have been involved in the accident, which similar situation. In Canada, and I know what it means when the wheels are hit, front wheel hit rear wheel, and it's just, in my point of view, quite dangerous. But I just say this: I have, you know, until nothing will happen, everything is fine. But if something will happen, then I think everybody will realize. That's all.
Hamilton's former teammate, Fernando Alonso, was asked to clarify comments he'd made that suggested he would help Massa's title charge.
Nothing against Lewis. You know, I have a great respect from him. I think he has great respect for me as well, and we have a good relationship. But I think it's like soccer. You know, when it plays two teams, you know, and one, you always prefer that one wins. You know, and it's the same for me. You know, if Ferrari wins, I will be more happy. If McLaren wins, okay.
Why?
Well, because I think last year. The problems I had in McLaren, the people I know them more or less, you know, I prefer they don't win because they don't deserve it.
Hamilton made his championship intentions clear. He took his 7th pole position, 3/10 ahead of Kimi, while Robert Kubica saw his championship flounder when he didn't even make it into the top 10. Hamilton and Raikkonen lined up just like in Fuji, but Lewis could not afford to make the same mistakes in Shanghai. Massa had to get the jump at the start and keep the pressure on the McLaren, but how far would his teammate go to help him? Alonso wanted to get in the mix from 4th, while penalties for Heidfeld and Webber compromised their races. Kovalainen hoped it was just smoke and no fire. A good start could extinguish Massa's charge. The top 3 slotted into position while Heikki stormed ahead and got alongside Alonso. He even had a look at Felipe's Ferrari. Hamilton led Raikkonen, Massa and the dueling Kovalainen and Alonso. Heikki was battling oversteer thanks to accidentally mismatched tyres, but Alonso was desperate to reclaim 4th. It was a relentless battle. But it gave Ron Dennis something to smile about. Side by side. They might have swapped teams in 2008, but Alonso was not going to let them swap track position. The start was straightforward for the front-runners, but that wasn't the case in the battle for 7th. Bourdais and Trulli were lucky not to create midfield mayhem and just ruined their own afternoons. Webber's grid penalty left him with lots to do. Barrichello's 10th place looked like an easy target, but a feisty Rubens made up places at the start and put up quite a fight against the Red Bull. Mark had the bit between his teeth and Piquet's 9th position was up for grabs. Nelson didn't take it lying down. But eventually, Webber got the better of him. Hamilton was storming ahead, and with the fastest lap, he had increased his margin over the Ferraris. Kubica hoped to gain positions with a long first stint, but when he rejoined ninth, it was clear his valiant championship challenge was all but over. It was a straight fight between Hamilton and Massa. The second pit stop window approached, but Kovalainen had already hit a stumbling block. A right front puncture ruined his race. And left him crawling back to the pits. Heikki stopped for repairs, but was it an isolated incident? Three laps later, his teammate was in for his second scheduled stop, and the team looked unconcerned. With Lewis unchallenged at the front, it was a case of damage limitation for Ferrari. Massa needed those 2 extra points. Felipe tried everything. Resorting to the shark fin engine cover didn't seem to help. Raikkonen did what was expected, but it looked to be slipping away from Ferrari. With 7 laps to go, Felipe got a run on Kimi and earned himself 2 extra valuable points. A bad day ended early for Kovalainen. The team opted to retire him thanks to a loss of hydraulic pressure. Good fortune looked more favourably on his teammate. No one came close to challenging him, and he firmly put all memories of last year well behind him with a dominating victory. Pole position, fastest lap, and the race win.
Tremendous, Lewis. Fantastic race. Lots of discipline. This is what we have to carry into Brazil. Let's keep the discipline going.
Ferrari just didn't have the pace to challenge McLaren in Shanghai, and there were just 2 weeks left to regroup. The textbook victory put Lewis on the brink of becoming the youngest Formula One world champion. And McLaren's first since Mika Häkkinen in 1999. Kubica's 6th place was not enough to keep his slim championship hopes alive. That was left to 2 men. Hamilton was 7 points clear, but he'd been here before with Kimi Räikkönen. Was he ready to fight on Massa's home turf?
Going to Brazil, it's always special for me because Ayrton Senna was my favorite driver. I never got to see his grave or meet him. And so whether or not I get the chance to visit him, I don't know. But just to be around Brazil, it's a fantastic place and it's an amazing circuit, so I look forward to it.
After 15 years in Formula One, one of the most popular drivers, David Coulthard, was hanging up his helmet in Brazil. But he left the job of describing a lap of Interlagos to fellow veteran and local man, Rubens Barrichello.
Hi, I'm Rubens Barrichello, and I want to show you a lap of Interlagos with my Honda racing car. We are around 300 kilometers by the finish line. You can see there's a little bit of buffeting. My head is being blown to the side. Second gear, I'm trying, to carry all the speed I can into turn 2, changing gears because it's very, very important that you have all the straight line, all the speed you can on this straight. It's a bit bumpy. You brake at 50 meters. When you go down to third gear again, left-hand corner, you can see that I'm quite busy, touching the curbs everywhere. with the car, and I'm on turn 5 going into 6 and 7, which is the best part of the circuit. It calls Laranjinha, and it's a 4th gear corner. Bit of understeer there. Lock up, very busy into turn 8 and 9, second gear, around 100 110 kilometers an hour, 2nd, 3rd and 4th, changing the brake balance, going back to 2nd gear into turn 10, and then it's all through the gears, flat out through 11, and braking as late as possible to 12, and getting on the power as early as possible again, because it's a very long straight. It was a good lap. Right now is everything finished. You just have to look into the lights and change gears. It was a pretty good lap with a little bit of understeer, but a good lap overall.
7 points separated the championship contenders. The same situation that Lewis had 12 months previously with Kimi Räikkönen. Only this time, there was no doubting the crowd's favourite. Massa got the home advantage with pole position, but Lewis could afford to lose 1 place in the race and still become champion. Trulli got amongst the Ferraris to take his first front row since 2005. Kovalainen hoped to protect his teammate, while Toro Rosso got both cars in the top 10 once again. DC started his last race 14th, with Rubens 15th. With only minutes to go before the start of the championship deciding race, torrential rain fell at Interlagos. It delayed the start and forced the teams to make the switch to wet tyres. Would local boy Felipe Massa fare better in the changeable conditions? Or could Lewis Hamilton become the youngest ever Formula One world champion? It was a straight fight. Hamilton versus Massa. Felipe got away well, while Kovalainen kept Alonso and Vettel at bay to keep his teammate safe. Piquet didn't go much further, while a collision with Rosberg left Coulthard a prime target for Nakajima. Again. Heikki lost his early momentum and found himself at the mercy of Sebastian and then Fernando. DC was devastated to end his F1 career on such a low. A tap from Rosberg reaffirmed his crash love affair with Kazuki for one last time. Track conditions had improved rapidly and the time was right for dry tyres. Massa pitted from the lead. One lap later, and it was the current top 3, Trulli, Räikkönen and Hamilton, who took to the pits. A quick stop for Kimi got him ahead of Jarno. Felipe led, while a light-fueled Vettel stayed ahead of Alonso and pushed the Ferrari to the limit. Räikkönen slotted in 4th, ahead of Fisichella, whose early stop for dries had paid dividends. Lewis was the biggest loser. He was now 7th behind Trulli. 5th was required, so he duly made progress at Jarno's expense. On dry tyres, conditions were still tough. Trulli struggled, but he was lucky to only lose 2 places and not his front wing. Fisichella's Force India was no easy target. Hamilton had to stare at his rear wing for 5 long laps. He finally took the risk to throw himself back into a championship winning position. The next task was to hold on to it. Trulli looked to regain ground and made a move on Bourdais. But the Toro Rosso was forced onto the grass for a little off-roading. Lap 51, and Vettel was in for his 3rd stop. He was out of sync with the rest of the field. Where would he come into play at the end of the race? That wasn't the only concern once the pit stops were complete. The threat of rain had returned once more. The dark clouds gathered in more ways than one for Lewis. Vettel was on the prowl and the McLaren driver had to protect his position.
Could rain in 10 minutes. Could rain in 10 minutes.
It was what the Brazilians wanted to see. Hamilton was under huge pressure from Red Bull-bound Sebastian. The Monza race winner was flying and looked set to help Massa's championship aspirations. But the rain started to fall. There were two options: pit and lose track position, or risk sliding off. Hamilton waited as long as he could, but with 5 laps to go, he pitted for wets. Vettel was battling him for position, and he too made the change. Lewis got his foot down and kept his title hopes alive. Massa waited one more lap, then he came in. The win was crucial, but even that would not guarantee the number 1 on his car in 2009. Timo Glock was still on dry tyres with only 4 laps to go. He was 4th and lapping back markers. More than that, he was one man who could decide the outcome of the championship. Vettel was the other, and in the worsening conditions he was blisteringly quick and right up behind Hamilton. Kubica was desperate to unlap himself after another dismal weekend, and Vettel wasn't about to argue. The BMW Sauber driver then set about passing Lewis. As he did so, the McLaren lost some momentum. Vettel reacted quickly and moved into 5th place. Advantage Massa with minutes to go. Or was it? The rain got heavier and Glock was struggling. Massa came through to take the victory for the 2nd time in São Paulo. The Brazilians went mad. The title looked to be his. But it wasn't over yet. Where was Hamilton and what about Glock? Timo's gamble had failed to help Massa. Hamilton snatched back 5th with just seconds remaining. After almost 30 hours of racing in 2008, the title was won in the final few seconds. Ferrari thought they had it. It was just heart-wrenching. No one could believe what had happened.
Fantastic. It's just what we want. Brilliant.
Guys, I'm speechless. I'm speechless. That was so freaking close. But you guys did a fantastic job all season, and you deserved it. So this is for you and to my family. Thank you for all supporting me and believing in me. You're the best.
I think you've done, well, what I can only say is a very good job. made a lot of friends this year and done a very, very good job. Well done, son. Very, very proud of you.
I'm so proud of you anyway. I would have been even more with the championship, but anyway, thank you.
It was all about the championship. 5th place, just 5 seconds ahead of Glock, was enough to make Lewis the youngest ever Formula One world champion. Piquet didn't make it to the end of his home race, while Coulthard was gutted not to sign off in style. But he wasn't the only one.
We finished in the front, and we have to be very proud about that. And unfortunately, we missed 1 point. And but that's racing. I mean, we need to be proud. We need to be proud about our job. We need to be proud about our race and our championship.
It was one of the toughest races of his career, and the emotions were overwhelming.
Insane. I can't believe I'm standing here world champion. I can't believe it.
Did you know all that was going on the last lap?
I did. I could see Vettel behind me, and I was trying to keep the car on the track, and I was struggling. You know, my tires were shot. I was on such a heavy fuel load at the time, and he did a fantastic job. I have to say that Felipe did a fantastic job today. Congratulations for his win and for challenging me all year.
And did you see Glock in front of you? Did you know you were passing Glock?
I was told that he was just ahead. I didn't know how far, but I knew he was on slicks, and I was just praying that I'd be able to get close to him. And I couldn't believe it when I could see him when he exited turn 10. He was just there, but I wasn't close enough, but I managed to get up the inside of him.
Can you describe your emotions right now? Put them into words?
I don't think I can. I'm very emotional, I would say. I've cried. My heart's feeling so much strain right now because I think it was the same for everyone. But I'm just very proud of the team and my family as well.
Hamilton was crowned champion by 1 point and took McLaren's first title since 1999. Raikkonen just got ahead of Kubica. Alonso scored the most points in the final 8 races, while Vettel finished an amazing 10th. Glock kept his more experienced teammate in check. Webber doubled his score from last season. Piquet struggled to shine, and DC only scored points twice. Things didn't go right for Bourdais and Button, while 4 drivers failed to score. Ferrari consoled themselves with their 16th Constructors' title, with McLaren second. For the first time in 34 races, BMW Sauber failed to score. However, they still finished ahead of Renault, Toyota and the radically improved Toro Rosso. But the season belonged to one man.